This is Community Connection, presented by the United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut and WTIC News Talk 1080, because good things happen in communities that care.
Hey, good morning. It's 8:38. Hope you're enjoying your Easter weekend. Also, of course, into Passover, and so there you are. Computer Talk with Tab coming up at 9 this morning. But for now, it's Community Connection, and thank you all for being here. Gary Steck is with us now. He's the just to reset the topic, we're talking about the reaction of the United Way, which is always there, and at 211, you can easily get in touch with them. But some of the things the United Way is doing in the aftermath of Sandy Hook and Newtown. Gary Steck is one of those, and we've talked quite a bit, about the mental health needs and the incredible burden that some of these people are carrying who've been through this, and not just the moms and the dads, but aunts, uncles, grandparents. I mean, it does touch everybody. And Gary Steck, CEO of Wellmore Behavioral Health, and he's also the chairman of the board, Connecticut Community Providers Association, is with us for a few minutes this morning. Gary, this has been a pretty intense 4 months for you, I would guess.
Yes, I've never experienced anything like it in my life.
Gary, everybody has their story. We were just telling them off the air, where you were when this went on. You were at Dress Barn, and you heard doing some Christmas shopping, and you're anticipating the season. And all of a sudden, a lady ahead of you got a text?
Yeah, a woman in front of me got a text, and I overheard it and picked up the phone and decided to call my crisis service back in Waterbury, because we typically do respond to school lockdowns, but I didn't know how long they were locked down. And we quickly discerned that they had been locked down for more than a few minutes, which usually means that there's something of substance going on, and we dispatched people blindly, not knowing what had happened. And then over the series of maybe 45 minutes, began to understand somewhat the scale, and then certainly, within an hour or two, realized that we had sent our staff into, I think, the worst tragedy Connecticut's ever experienced.
I think you're right. Gary, you, in fact, as part of your job and part of the profession which you practice, you had to do some notification.
Yep. I was asked and was prepared a little bit to go out with a group of 26 or 27 other people, because there was a few that doubled up. And also we were matched with police officers and with clergy to go to the homes of all of the families of the victims, because, of course, they had not... they had a sense, obviously.
There was uncertainty. You didn't know.
But there was specific information that they needed to know, and that obviously they had not seen their child or loved one at that point. And the governor had already said to everyone who was in the room at the firehouse that their loved one was lost, but there was other information that needed to happen. So in the middle of the night, we got called to go and do this. There was initially the plan was to do it the next morning, but it was very practical to do it in the evening, because frankly the media was like nothing. It was unimaginable.
And I would guess for a lot of these parents, and these were parents who were notifying, am I correct on that?
Yep.
All right. I would imagine in the absence of information and being the way we are wired, there probably was, until there's that certainty, there's probably that hope that, okay, maybe, my son, maybe my daughter got through this okay or whatever. And now you have to basically say, no, that's not the way it is.
I think that the families knew, but you don't really know until
somebody tells you.
And someone tells you in that fashion. And I mean, it's a moment that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. But I also would say that I was amazed at how the family that I was connected with handled the moment. I'm not sure I would have even opened the door. And they were exhausted, and they have extended family that is with them, and it began a relationship that's continued for me with them until today, and I'm just amazed and blessed to be connected with them. They're a wonderful family, as all of them are. If they lived next door to me in town, they'd be people that I hung out with and head over for barbecue or whatever.
Gary, and just folks, I don't know if you can tell from listening to Gary, but I mean, and everybody we've talked to this morning, Gary's feeling this as well. It's almost as if, as a mental health provider, you almost need counseling. I mean, this has got to be tough for you to do.
We did. I mean, by the middle of the week afterwards, actually, my staff, I had to do a staff meeting, and they asked me to do a blessing in a moment of silence, and I broke down, and they took me out of the game. But we have, which is a little dramatic, but not really. I think I was just exhausted at that point. But we have my staff has been debriefed, and we have ongoing staff to support us, and many of our staff are in ongoing counseling because of it's, exhausting.
As are the first responders, as are a number of people involved in this. Gary, when you make this notification, all right, and here you are, you have to be the pro. You've got to handle this. You've been trained to deal with this. And even so, training, it's still, you're not prepared for it. What do you do immediately? Is there something, because we're going to talk about short-term, mid-term, and they're going to be long-term down the road. What do you do first? Just a shoulder to cry on? I mean, what do you do?
Well, we prepared on the way in, and to be honest, and for me, this is Easter weekend. I prayed, and so I felt completely at peace, and that I had the sense of grace and readiness to do this. And you went in, and I just felt immediately attached and connected to them. It was very quiet and dark. Their Christmas tree was lit.
Oh, God.
The children's ornaments and whatnot were out. Everything was as it would have been on a regular day. You held them. You tried to support them. We had some information that we needed to give to them, which I'm sure really was meaningless at that point and sailed right over their head.
Yeah,
we tried to give them a basic sense of comfort and stability, and told them the ways in which we would be there and connected with them, and then tried to help them to get back and get a little bit of sleep, because we knew that they were exhausted and overwrought at that point.
Gary, I'm going to break for sports here just for a minute. I do. But I want to, where do you go from here? And I guess with each individual, it's going to be a different path. I would guess that's true. And it sounds as if you formed, just as you had before, some long-term relationships with some of the parents, some of the people directly involved and indirectly. So let's talk about, where do you go from here so we can get an idea of what the United Way is going to be working on. It's 8:45. All right, so 8:50 on WTIC. It's Community Connection here in the middle of Easter weekend. Easter Sunday tomorrow. Looks like a pretty good day with some showers developing by afternoon. A couple of folks we're spending time with this morning, and we're talking about Newtown, the aftermath, and the role of the United Way in taking care of this, and at least helping these people cope with this. Gary Steck is with us. He's CEO of Wellmore Behavioral Health, chairman of the board, Connecticut Community Providers Association. Gary, and Gary was one of the folks who had to notify the parents that against all hope, their child wasn't going to survive. Now, you've gone through this 4-month period. Now, how does this come back on you? Is it it's something you'll never forget, but does it kind of ebb and flow as far as the effects? Or
personally, absolutely. But in terms of overall my view of what's going on, the initial sort of super crisis phase is winding down, and now we're finding we all have to, and as a community, we all have to try to move forward. And I think that there's many different ways in which people are struggling with this. One of the interesting phenomena that we've become aware of is that there are some people that we met in the first days and hours that we really thought would be, it would be a good idea for them to go into counseling because it would hopefully help them feel a little bit better, decided to step back because they felt like they were taking somebody else's slot. And now we want to really get the message out to folks that, no, really, counseling is a good idea. For most people, it helps them feel better, and that there are resources available. There are many funds and supports, but there are counseling agencies, United Way supported agencies, and others that are available, ready to help out. And that please, by all means,
get in touch.
If this is affecting, yes, please seek out the help.
Gary, you were talking, your experience that day and how you got to Newtown and started helping to help. Tell me about the emergency mobile psychiatric services. I'm going to back up just a bit. Is this like a MASH unit, so to speak, or what is it exactly?
Sort of, yeah. It's a reference that I'm not sure all of your listeners would.
Oh, well, yeah, I
dated
know.
yourself.
Yeah.
There is a network of emergency mobile psychiatric services that are funded by the state of Connecticut, and in our case, we also have some funding from 2 local United Ways, and we have staff that go out into the home, into the school, wherever the crisis is, to provide immediate response. And some of it is typical things where families have problems with their children, disagreements, and then some of it is depression and anxiety. And some of it is the threat or worry about suicide. And then obviously when there are community crises like this where they're also.
I don't know how you do it, Gary. The other thing we were talking to Susan was talking about ripples, and they're radio waves that are going out, they're TV waves that are going out. So in a sense, there may be a child who's 6 years old, 7 years old, living in Manchester, who may, in fact, have we seen much of that? Do we know anything about that? Have we quantified it?
A great deal of what we're doing now, and all of the human service agencies are doing, is trying to offer some reassurance and support, and a fair amount of the work for me initially and of what continues is reassuring the parents that we're directly involved and reminding them of their competency as parents. Many of them are still greatly struggling with this, and they're questioning whether they have the strength or ability to answer the hard questions and to help their kids move forward. And that is the reason why there is this network of human service and mental health providers throughout the state of Connecticut that are there as a resource.
Because you're a professional. And let's say that your child happened to be watching TV that day or in the aftermath. And let's say like you're not directly involved with Newtown, although in a sense we all are. Should there be something a parent should be doing if you have a child who wasn't there but is kind of, worried by this? Security at their own school, for example? Well,
ultimately, I hope and recommend that parents try to interpret and manage the TV and the news. So you have to be the person that puts the context there. So I could say in my case, we have a 3-year-old and soon to be 6-year-old, and then some older kids too. We had the TV turned off, but my younger daughter, although I think that she hasn't seen much on TV, is talking stranger danger, and I just witnessed her last night actually playing a game with her 3-year-old's brother, where she was saying, "Oh, the bad guy's going to come and get you. We're going to lock the door down." So it was a teachable moment for us to experience with her, and I think that those are typical when you work with little kids, much more amplified in the context of such a horrendous event.
Does it seem real to them?
I don't. I think it's real that they are observing what they're observing on TV.
Can they process it though? I guess
no, not in the same sort of. Well, it depends on the age. Not in the same sort of abstract way. But what is real is that they absolutely are watching the adults around them and seeing how the adults are reacting to this. Right,
and I wanted to go back just a minute to Kim Morgan, because there's one point we do want to make out, because a lot of you have get out. A lot of you have been very, very generous. $10 million is it in the fund now, Kim?
About $10.5 million.
Okay, but one thing we wanted to point out: this is not like a bunch of folks coming in and saying, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do." Fact of the matter is, you're dealing with the people of Newtown. What do you need? Is that the way?
Absolutely. United Way has a national network, but at its core, it's local. And in Connecticut, it's local down to the town level oftentimes. And we've turned the money over to this new foundation and put it into the hands of Newtown residents and leaders to decide how best to use it.
So you will help them assess what may be needed to be done, but ultimately it's them.
Yes. I'm a board member without a vote. So I'm in the room ensuring that they're thinking both short-term and long-term, and I'm ensuring that they're getting input from those most impacted. And beyond that, it's really in the hands of the local community to decide what they need.
And you as a non-voting member nevertheless can say, look, here's some ways we can help address that, right? Is that kind of the way it works with you?
Yes. We're working with a number of nonprofits now to start talking about what are the next steps, what's needed, and working with victim services as well. And we can bring that information back to the foundation.
And the fact of the matter is, guys, this all is coordinated. It's done in a lot of ways. The United Way is that one place you can always turn, simply by calling 211. Susan, it's been a little somber, but I think it on the other hand, it's nice to know that you guys are there.
I think it's very important to have folks understand exactly what's going on there. And I think it was a sort of poignant this morning on the front page of the Hartford Courant was a story about a Newtown family that was burned out of their home. And I believe they had lost a child at the school. And so now they've lost their home. Now the Red Cross was there immediately to help them. So again, it's that network of services that are supported to provide that safety net. Clearly, they're going to need, in addition to probably mental health counseling with this, they've lost everything in their home. So they're going to need a new home, and they're going to need new furniture and new things for their kitchen. I mean, there's a whole host of ways.
I think deep on the primal level, if you would be those folks, you'd be going, what the heck have I done to deserve this? I mean, you really do. That's
a horribly re-traumatizing event, and my prayers are with them. It's it's got to be a rough time for them.
All right.
So it just keeps going on, and so that's why you need the long-term support.
Oh, absolutely. Gary, how long do you think this will be? I mean, do you think it'll be years, months?
I mean, a generation. I mean, I've said this. I think that right now we're just still in the short-term phase, but really, I think that this is going to every birthday. You know, these are such young children and young people overall that this is going to be many, many, many years.
Gary, you know, we hear often about the 7 stages of grief. And, you know, there's denial and so on and so forth. I guess that process is going to play out over a long time here.
Sure. Yes, and I think it's going to come in waves. And so I think there are children and individuals that are hugely sensitized to specific things right now, the sounds and sights that they remember from that day and that moment where they were. And then there's other more, you know, each child is going to have a birthday. There's going to be soccer leagues and baseball games, and people connect with that. So I think I'm really impressed with how this community has rallied and how in Connecticut we take care of our neighbors and friends and loved ones. But we have a long road in front of us.
All right. Hey, Kim, I want to thank you for being in. Gary, I want to thank you. Some final thoughts. We have about 45 seconds here, Susan. I guess 211 is part 1.
211.
Number 2, help out the United Way.
Absolutely. And I want to thank Kim Morgan publicly for all she's done and all she's been through and her leadership in that area. And it's not over.
Yeah, Kim, it's great. And by the way, if you do want to volunteer, you know, and certainly 211 is another way to do that, or go to the website. Would we go to her website?
Actually, you can go through United Way of Connecticut, and they'll direct you to anyone, the local areas.
So if you want to do something and you know, see where you can help and match your skills, what maybe need to be done, then this is the way to go.
Google United Way of Connecticut.
All right, guys. I hope you all have a wonderful Easter holiday, and you know, I'm sure we'll see you again. Gary, it's been an honor. Great to talk to you. We'll see you Monday morning.